So how does one create a compelling narrative? Compelling meaning more than I sat back and I listened to it, but I actually am compelled. I am motivated forward. I am moved enough by what was said that I need to do something about it. I need to engage with it. How do you do that when you're talking about your spiritual center? First, you have to know what makes you unique. So there are several things to think about theologically in the big picture. We're unique in lots of ways. Unity is unique in that we deliver a positive message about life. We're not fire and brimstone. That separates us out pretty quickly, doesn't it? We're giving you tools to help define your spiritual belief. We're not telling you what you have to believe. We're giving you questions and examples and stories that allow you to ponder what you truly believe. And our objective is to get you engaged directly one-on-one with the spirit that you are, with the spirit that exists as you and moves as you, that you experience yourself as the holy. That's very different from most any other community in your area that people might engage with. So when we taught this class before, one of the things that came up that Jean-Marie shared with us was it's unique that he is from a foreign country. He has a unique perspective because his place of origin is not the same as the United States. He comes from a different country. What is unique about you as a leader? What is it that you bring to the table that nobody else can? Bill, it might be for you, might be your business background. It might be something that guides you as the board president. Russ, you and I have talked some about the background that you have as in health and healing and how that applies in this arena, how you can bring a spiritual slant to that. What is it for you that makes you a unique leader? Because you are part of the story of your community as it is today. And of course, that changes every time a new leader comes in. But sometimes we forget ourselves in the story. We forget that we are part of the current existing story where we are. We don't really want to talk about ourselves. You know, we have lots to talk about. So most of us don't really put a lot of focus on ourselves. But being able to say, one of the reasons that I'm here is that my background includes this. One of the reasons that I can tell you, one of the reasons that I'm engaged with Unity is because I'm an interfaith advocate and I have a very strong background in religious study across multiple faiths. And I find that in Unity, I am able to use all the things that I've learned in my teaching experience. I don't have to hold back if something I've learned from Hindu studies or Buddhist studies or any other studies applies to the Unity message. I'm able to say, you know, this is very similar in this faith and this faith and this faith, which leads me to believe it's probably more of a universal principle. So being able to bring everything I am to Unity is really important to me and advantageous, I think, to those people who study with me. What is advantageous for people who study with you, who work with you, who walk beside you as a spiritual leader? What do you bring that they can't get anywhere else because it's only yours? Part of your narrative. What's your objective or mission? What is it that you are intending your community will be? This vision is a really important thing. Perhaps your vision for your community, and I want to be careful about mission, because the mission is something the whole community agreed to, and that certainly is part of your story. But what is your vision for what your community can do that nobody else can do, or that nobody else is doing, or that very few people are doing? So how do you get another question we might ask about this is, how do you get outside your walls? How do you get away from what you do in your own ministry? Do you go out and work with the food bank? Do you help build Habitat for Humanity houses? Do you work with the schools to fill backpacks? There are lots of different kinds of ways that we can get involved in supporting the community around us. What do you do outside your theological foundation? What kind of classes do you offer? What would I find if I were to come and take classes in your spiritual community? What kind of classes would I find? I was the Unity Church here this weekend was teaching a class on intuitive painting. I've never seen that in a Unity Church. I've seen intuitive painting offered in many places, but I thought, oh, cool, what a unique thing to be doing. What do you do that is unique and different, and why? What is it that you want to accomplish? Getting beyond your walls is important. Figuring out what you do for the people in your church, what you do for the people who are outside your church, and how you contribute to world change. What it is that you're doing that actually assists people in world change. I think also, what are your actualities? And what I mean by actualities is you have real stories of people in your community, real stories from people who have participated, who have something they want to share with you about what they've experienced. So looking at what your actualities are actually really matters. So going forward, does it really matter? To you, it matters, or you wouldn't be here. So you can all say, yes, this really matters because I'm doing this because it matters. But who does it matter to? Who really out there in the world needs this message? And this is, I think, sometimes the thing we forget to ask ourselves in all of our marketing efforts and in all of our message sharing with people. Does it really matter? And to whom? Who is going to care about this? One of the ways that you can answer that question is you can look out on a Sunday morning at who's sitting in the pews or who's sitting in the chairs. Whoever is there, it matters to them, doesn't it? What do they have in common? Are they people of a particular age? Are they people of a particular lifestyle? Are they people of a particular background? What is it that makes our message important to them? Are they people confronting a particular problem? Do they come together because they're lonely and they want to create community? Do they come together because they want to make a difference in the world of one kind or another? Do they come together because they want to bring out into the world the idea that religion does not have to be fire and brimstone? It doesn't have to be negative. Are they the people who really understand that they are the hands and heart of the divine expressing? Or are they people who want to be the hands and heart of the divine expressing and love the idea but haven't quite had the experience yet? Are they people who want a loving opportunity for their children to gain some spiritual knowledge without having particular text forced down their throat? What is it that makes what we do matter? To whom does it matter? What is the age? What is the income? Psychographic has to do with lifestyle, and every church is psychographically different. Psychographic means you're active. Maybe you're bicyclists and you're theater goers and you're out listening to live music. Maybe your people are really active, or maybe they're relatively passive. They're pretty much homebodies. You have a lot of people who are still on Zoom. They like the interaction, but they're not leaving their homes so much. It's important to know that too, because if you attract active people into a passive community, they're not going to be very happy, are they? Your message needs to tailor towards the lifestyle. Psychographic is just another word for lifestyle of the community that you have. And remember, this message is still the story you're telling. So it's a nice thing to say, we're a community of very quiet, calm, contemplative people. That could be one way. Or you might say, we're a really active community. Saturdays we have bike rides, Sundays we do church and we picnic afterwards. Usually middle of the week we do something for our children. Those two different ways of telling your story make a difference in the kind of people you'll attract. And you want to attract people who will want to be there, because all of us want to grow our community. All of us are doing this to get our message out farther, to provide people with an opportunity for a better life. So, sometimes it's easy to sit back and notice that we have a full room. Maybe for you, a full room is 12, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 200. But we have plenty of people there. We have a good community. We don't have to work really hard to get the message beyond where we're getting it. We are not a proselytizing community. We have no charge to go out and bring people in. We have to go find people. That's part of our work. That's not how we are. However, we are living in a world that is experiencing great stress. And people in our world are receiving a message that they are sinners and that foundationally what is broken in them is what's causing the problem. And we have remedies. We have things that help people to see themselves differently and to empower themselves to be the God that they are, to actually change the way the world is. And so there is value in looking at this and being open to your doors opening for people who really can use what it is you have to offer. What do they want from you when they come? Everybody wants to be greeted, right? Hello, we're glad you're here. Everybody wants to feel welcome. They want to feel like the community that they've stepped into is like them, that they have a place, that they fit. So who is your community? How do you define your community? These are questions to think about and ask yourself as you develop and craft a message. And this is crafting a message, because we can all talk all day about what we love about our church, but we want to craft a simple, clear message that our communities can hear often enough that they can share it, that it's first nature to them. So part of crafting a compelling message is to actually talk to the people who are participating now. Talk to the people in your community and ask them, what are your real life stories? What's happened for you since you came here? Who are the people in your community who will say, unity changed my life? We all know there are people like that in our community. How did unity change their life? Do you know those stories? Could you repeat their stories? Could you share their stories? Would they share their stories? On a Sunday, would they step up to the podium and in 3 minutes share the story of why unity is important to them? How unity has changed my life? Could you record them? Could you create little video clips that say, unity changed my life? How unity changed my life? And just let them talk for a minute. Unity changed my life because I met my husband here and we shared the same spiritual beliefs. Unity changed my life because when I came here, I had just lost a spouse and I found a community that moved me forward. Unity saved my life. I have a friend who would say, unity saved my life because I was an addict when I came here. And I was so hard on myself, I couldn't imagine myself being any different. And unity taught me that I was God expressing, and that gave me the freedom to let go of my addictions and do life differently. Powerful story, isn't it? Who are the people that have stories? Is there a theme amongst those stories? Is it heart healing? Is it community connection? What is the theme that shows up over and over again that helps to define why people attend your particular unity, church, or alternative ministry? When you start telling this story and you start crafting this message. What are the visuals that you want to share? Do you want to share people's faces? Do you want to share pictures of your community working together? Do you want to share? What we share often is a picture of our building. And I cannot tell you the number of Unity promotional pieces I see that are pictures of the building. Many of the things that we see at Unity Village are pictures of the buildings, aren't they? Which has a different intention because it shows the size and magnitude of what Unity is. But for us in our smaller communities, unless there's something really unusual and unique about your church building, like Apollonia spoke earlier about being up on a beautiful hill, maybe there's something very serene about that. But unless there's something very unique, a unique garden, a statuary, a something, people are attracted to people, not buildings. The only benefit in putting a picture of your building in your narrative, if it's a visual narrative, is that one, people will recognize it when they drive up to it. Or two, you have a labyrinth, a garden, a something that people might be compelled to come and see. Otherwise, they're looking for people that look like them. They're looking for people where it feels like it's comfortable to join that community. They're looking for smiling and welcoming faces. They're looking for activities. Your visual needs to tell people who you are. If the visuals that you use are predominantly one race, people of other races will not feel welcome. If the visuals that you use are predominantly one age, people of other ages may feel like they won't fit in. If there are no children in your pictures, people who have children are less likely to bring them, are less likely to feel like you're welcoming to children. So when you do visual storytelling, and we do that in everything that we send out, in our newsletters, in everything that we send out, what are you telling people by the visuals that you incorporate? Are you thinking about it? Or is it just, you're just throwing a picture in because there's a space for a picture and a picture should go there? Really give it some thought. What is the story you want the pictures to take? You want the pictures to tell. What is the story you want the pictures to tell? You can use multiple methods to share your message when you have your story down. When you know what your story is, you can put pieces of it in print. You can create podcasts about it. You can use audio clips. You can use video. You can use in-person storytelling. Once you have your story, it applies everywhere in everything that you do. But writing your story requires actually taking the time to think about it and writing it down, and then looking at it and saying, how long is this going to take me to tell? Is somebody going to actually stop and listen to me? Or can I tell this story in 60 seconds? What can I say that will compel you to come to my church in 60 seconds? Because that might be all the time that I have. We have the most amazing community. They're like-minded, kind, and welcoming. Our theology invites you to understand the holiness you carry inside of you, to be the best you, and yet opens you to forgive any time in your life that you haven't been the best you. You will find people will greet you at the door. What can you say? Things to think about. Don't just talk about it. Make a meaningful impact. So everything I just said really matters, right? We are welcoming, we are affirming of your lifestyle, whatever that is. We will take the time to get to know you. We will have activities and classes you can take. We welcome you to be your holy best. But what is meaningful and unique about any of them? Could I find another church that would say we're welcoming and affirming? Mm-hmm. We'll greet you at the door. Yep. We'll encourage you to be your best self. Yep. Almost any church is going to say that. What's the meaningful message that you live into every day? What do people take home? Are they able to live differently because of what you do? What tools do you give them? We teach you to love yourself. I think that's a really big one in Unity. We teach you to love yourself as the God you are. We teach you to open up to and to express and live from your holy self. Sometimes if we start with, we teach you to be the God you are, people can't take that. They're not quite ready for it. But we teach you to love yourself, to forgive yourself, to open up to your greatest self. We teach you tools that will help you move through life differently. And we take what we know out into the world and we make a difference. A month ago, we went out to the food bank and we collected food for a whole month and we brought 10 tons of food, whatever you brought, right? We take what we learn out into the street. I'll tell you that with the younger generations from that 20 to 40-year-old generation, that really makes a difference to them. Are you just sitting in a building and talking, or are you actually doing something that makes the world a better place? We care about the environment. We really work to recycle, to save our electricity, to have a light footprint on the earth. That makes a difference. We really care about kids. Here's how we take care of them. We really care about seniors. Here's how we take care of them. We really care about what's going on governmentally. We can't get involved on the same level as other organizations can, but we bring teachers in to help us work on how we have controversial conversations. How do we converse differently? We bring teachers in to teach us how to integrate our community, how to really truly bring all the intersectional concerns into conversation. We actually work on that. We don't just say this is who we are. We learn how to be the change we want to see in the world. Here's some of the people we've brought in to teach us how to do this. Here's how we practice as community. These things matter. Are you making a meaningful impact? You certainly are, or no one would be listening to you. You are certainly, absolutely, 100% making a meaningful impact right now. If you don't know what that meaningful impact is, then you have to go back a few slides, don't you? And you have to talk to your community and ask them, what is the impact in your life of being part of this specific community? Because that's where your real story is. Because a real story is a human happening. A real story is not just who we are and what we put together every Sunday and that we have a great fellowship. A real story is a human happening. It's an interaction and an occurrence. So you have the opportunity to now go in and seek out the real story in your community. And it takes time and it takes consistency to teach people what the story is. You have to be willing to share these real stories. You have to be willing to talk with people instead of assume that you know what the impact is for them. You have to tell other people the stories so that other people know how to talk about the community, because there are people out there who are looking for you. There are people out there who are looking hard for what it is you have to offer. And you need everyone in your community to be prepared to share your story. So you have to tell your story to make that happen. You sometimes have to ask them, can you share a story with people around you? If somebody came to you and said, I'm looking for something that will make me feel better, or a place where I can connect with people, I'm feeling really lonely. Do you feel comfortable inviting them to participate here. If you got people in the door, assuming that members of your community brought people to the door, are you prepared to tell them why they should stay? You have to tell news stories all the time, but they have to have a consistent foundation, a consistent theme. We are this. For, as I said, in my Unity Church, it really was foundational that we are interfaith based. We teach unity and we cross compare unity with other faiths on a regular basis. That's what I bring that is different and unique. What do you bring that's different and unique? And your stories have to matter. If it doesn't matter to you to tell this story of your community, you're not telling the right story yet. If you're just saying what you think you need to say, it was, again, obvious when Apollonia was speaking that the story that she was telling was meaningful to her. Is your story meaningful for you? What makes it meaningful? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. You have all heard this. This is a great quote. It's one of those quotes everybody's seen, everybody's heard, but it's not one that we apply very often to our own spiritual communities. Your community has the capacity to make a difference in the greater community that you're seated in. Are you doing it? What difference would you like to make? Whose life would you like to impact? Would you like to impact people who are homeless? Would you like to impact people who are in hospice? Would you like to impact children or teens who are feeling lost in the world? Who would you like to have an impact on? You don't have to have a building to make an impact. You have to know who it is you want to impact. And then you have to look for ways to engage with that part of the community or with organizations that serve that part of the community. But if your story is only what happens in your building on Sunday, it's not exciting enough to grow your community very much. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong on Sunday mornings. You're doing great things on Sunday mornings. It's because there are 356 other churches doing great things on Sunday mornings too. Your story has to place you in a unique position. It has to offer something different. And if it's not meaningful to the people sitting in the chairs, if they don't feel excited about who you are and what you do, they can't tell the story. It's not enough to do what you've always done. Having a great story to tell requires having engaged in great action. What's your great action? What really have you done that nobody else has done or that you feel great about? Tell me something great your community has done.
Well, I can start. So two things. As a minister, I've been part of this clergy group that has around 100 representations, senior ministers or pastors or rabbis or imams who come together under the interfaith, interreligious idea. And we're specifically focused on racial justice issues in the Fort Worth area. That's primarily me investing time in that kind of area of expertise, but the congregation has been involved in some of the critical race theory forums that we did, some other activities. The community, however, actually coming out of the community, which is really my preference, coming from the bottom up rather than top down, has really been very engaged in the food insecurity area, like helping out a food bank, not the food bank directly, but a pantry of one of my friends out of that racial justice community. And we continue to support them. We started out with 6 months of investment and said, let's make a commitment of 6 months, and we keep going. And it's a significant number of our community, I would say, who regularly goes and just helps in this very small area, if you believe. But it's in Fort Worth, a huge need.
I was sitting there thinking that one of the things that we have done is in the congregation, we have prayer chaplains that are very, very active. And when an issue comes up, prayer starts immediately. And we have a group of people that show up. If somebody goes into surgery, we actually go into the hospital and form a circle and pray. And it has had a huge impact. It really has. And it's amazing, some of the local hospitals, they know what we're going to do. Excuse me, they've heard what we do, and we just show up in the patient's room or whatever it is and do a prayer circle and just pray individually. That had a huge impact. And I was thinking that things have a tendency to be forgotten, and we have to be careful on that. So I was appreciated, because my own self personally, I have been through surgery, and it was amazing to wake up and have my congregation around me praying. And it's a personal impact as well as a community impact, as well as the impact that people have around us.
Nancy, I know you're doing alternative ministry. I'm curious what you feel is unique about what you do.
Well, I haven't done it quite as much since COVID, but my ministry is an alternative ministry called Unity Spirit of Aloha. And it was conceived through my experience interning in Hawaii with Reverend Sky St. John, and the impact that the Aloha Sunday services had on me personally. And it took an ancient Hawaiian wisdom teaching and integrated it with other spiritual ideas, other lessons, other perceptions, and applied it to our life experience. So what I was inspired to do after Sky's passing was to create this ministry and travel around. My husband plays the ukulele and sings, and we pair up to deliver guest messages. And the idea is that we're bringing the spirit of aloha to the mainland and to every community. And we've been to Canada, we've been to Seattle in the rainy season, we've been to Florida, we've been all over. And it's a magical experience and we've been to Fort Worth and of course around the Dallas area, as well as to Colorado many times. But it's just a magical experience that gives people the opportunity to have fun, to wear a lei, to learn more about the true meaning of aloha, which is really about love. It's about connection. It's about family. And the word ohana means family in Hawaiian. And so we try to create some joy.
There's two things that come to mind. One of them is that this community has a women's shelter that they seem to love, and this didn't start from the powers that be. This started in the community, and it's just become something that's embraced by the community. And they don't just love to give food and clothing that the women in the shelter need. They love to get very individualized gifts. And sometimes it's as simple as they get together and pot flowers and plants and decorate it and give each one something that's theirs versus this something that's communal in the shelter. And what I know that they're trying to convey is that these women to know they're not forgotten, that they're not alone, that there's other people in the world that remember them and want to be there with them. And that carries over. We had 2 people impacted by the tornado in March, and the community showed up to do things in the yards at their home, but they continued on just to reach out to these 2 women and let them know they weren't forgotten. And this process that months later, they're still in that process. They're still dealing with the insurance. They're still dealing with buildings that aren't repaired, et cetera, et cetera. And just letting them know that in that process, they haven't been forgotten.
This is my point, guys. You're looking for the foundation story. And then you want to ask yourself, once you know what the story is, why is that meaningful? Who would care about that? Why is that meaningful? In the world today that we understand who ends up in a woman's shelter, that's meaningful, isn't it? That we are really teaching ourselves critical race relations, that's meaningful. That we are showing up at the hospital for one another, praying with one another, that we are bringing joy into the world, into a world that doesn't even know how to define that word. Where joy is this thing we talk about and rarely really experience. These are foundation points from which you can write a very compelling story. So when you write that story, in order to make it compelling, you have to ask yourself, who cares? What is it about your story? You know, your story, Robert, about going to the hospital speaks so deeply to the heart of your people caring for each other. They really care for each other. Your story, Jean-Marie, of working with other faith leaders, it speaks so strongly to uniting the world, the spiritual world at the very least, and bringing together the strength of all of these different faiths. There's just a lot, just in the few stories that you've told. So you're doing all of this great work, all of you as spiritual leaders, and you're doing it because you want the world to be better. Not just better in a way that is, I want to fix something that's broken, but better in the way of the human experience that we all share. We want the world to have a better human experience. We want to contribute and to know that we can contribute to making life experience better on our planet, in our states, in our cities, for the people that walk in through our doors. And your stories help them to find you so that you can make the difference that you are prepared to make for them and are already making for other people. And the world needs you. Like, this is no light thing. We can talk through stories and it sounds great. And it sounds like, oh, we're thinking about marketing a little bit. We're thinking about what we do a little bit. But what is really true is that your story is how people find you, and it's how you make the world a better place. And you are prepared to do that in a world that needs you desperately. So if you think that putting some time into contemplating your story is not that important, let me just tell you, it's incredibly important to give thought to the compelling story that you have that lets people who are looking for you, who need you in their lives, find you. And it's worthy of more than just sitting in this 1 hour class. It's worthy of taking 30 minutes or an hour and actually beginning to craft a compelling story that tells the promise of what people will get from you if they participate with you in your community. It is a promise. What's the promise you can deliver?